From ghoulies and ghosties.
From ghoulies and ghosties.
And long-leggedy beasties.
And long-leggedy beasties.
And
things that go bump in the night. Good Lord! Deliver us!
Deliver us.
So, you know a thing or two about vampires. If you don't, then you're in for a show tonight. But you at least know the gist. If you've ever seen a vampire film or if you've read a book, vampires feed on human blood, they turn into bats and wolves, they can only be destroyed by having wooden stakes driven through their hearts or being forced out into the sunlight. Rest assured, whatever you know about vampires from watching the Twilight films or reading the books, you can completely forget about it. Seriously, we don't glitter, we don't have ugly CGI kids, and we most certainly don't make weird high-pitched laughs at inappropriate moments. I'm talking to you, Michael Sheen. But for some of you, maybe you want to learn a little bit more about what it's like to live as a vampire in this day and age. So, for you, my students, I am releasing this video about the hidden rules of the modern-day life of a vampire. Rule number 1. Vampires don't drive cars. I don't know why. You take an engine, you put it with a steering wheel, it makes no sense to us. Seriously, if you're in the middle of a high-speed chase and you want me to be your getaway driver, you're just out of luck. We're going to crash. I'll be okay. I can't say the same about you. And yes, I know, some of you will say, oh, well, what about the movie Nightfall or Interview by a Vampire? Well, that's just silly Hollywood stuff. Rule number 2, vampires don't vote. And to be honest with you, I don't understand why we would. We're older than most of the countries that we live in. Plus, you've been around long enough, all politicians are pretty much the same anyway. And besides, we can't even be photographed. We can't get a voter ID card. Somewhere out there, there is a young idealist who is watching this and is getting enraged because I have never been able to vote. Well, young idealist, maybe someday you can work an angle to where you can get vampires' voter ID cards and we too can participate in the democratic process. After all, vampire lives do matter. I shouldn't have said that. I'm probably going to get cancelled for that one. Rule number 3. Vampires can have jobs. And yes, this rule is completely self-serving for me. If a vampire were to wear the right protective measures, I don't see why a vampire can't hold down a job in pretty much in the industry. Of course, young idealist, if I'm wrong about that, I can count on you to push for vampire workers' rights. After all, vampire rights do matter. That joke was not spaced out enough. I've got to move on. Rules number 4 through 6 are a little conflated together, and they're based off of a now forgotten book series for children known as the Bailey School Kids. If you're unfamiliar with that series, I will explain. It's about these young kids who attend Bailey School, and they usually encounter adults throughout the series that may or may not be supernatural creatures, but it's a little hard to fully conclude whether or not they are those creatures because they have some distinguishing human trait, like a leprechaun playing basketball or a werewolf teaching camp. In this case, I'm focusing on the books that have to do with the alleged vampires. In the series, their homeroom teacher, they believe, is a vampire, and their guidance counselor, Counselor Drake. CD, Count Dracula. Need I say more? Vampires do in fact wear polka dots. You've seen me change my outfit from time to time. I look great in polka dots, and I love them. But whether or not Dracula, can play rock and roll music or kickball, well, circumstances may vary, as do skill levels. Now, I will say the rock and roll music makes a lot more sense. I've actually met a lot of vampire musicians, but haven't really met a lot of vampire athletes. One more thing I will add as an aside. There used to be a book series that came out a while ago called Bunnicula, about a vampire bunny rabbit. I don't think that a vampire bunny rabbit's diet would consist of vegetables. They would be bloodthirsty and aggressive and violent, but they do exist. I should get a pet bunny. Anyway, those are my rules. If you like what you saw, be sure to log on to patreon.com/Drahun to support the show. If you pledge $5 a month, we will give you access to unreleased full-length vlog episodes for your viewing pleasure. They're in the can and they are waiting for you. In addition to that, you will also have exclusive access to our private Facebook page, and we shall give you a shout out at the end of every episode moving forward. Always remember that as far as things go, when things go bump in the night, there are such things.
From ghoulies and ghosties.
From ghoulies and ghosties.
And long-leggedy beasties.
And long-legged beasties. And things that go bump in the night. Good Lord! Deliver us!